So that's stimming creates dopamine in the brain, which is a neurotransmitter that makes you feel calm and good. And if you're worried about a behavior, the last thing in the world you want to do is stop someone from stimming. You,
Hello, this is Rita, and this is me and my mommy's podcast, and then my mommy, and there's me, and I'm just talking about this stuff, and there's me tap dance, because this is a tap dance, it's a autism podcast, and there's a bunch of animals, and I'll be trying to eat my hair, and there's a bunch of sand in the ocean. Also, there's also that stuff, and a woman makes it big. Oh, that color also old, yes, negative life. Dolphin pants their seat. Oh, those they're muffled. The boots are amazing. Also, this trying not to have a fan bag. Also, there's a podcast about autism, tap dancing, and blah blah blah. I did ADHD in this thing. Also, this cute adorable pup. That's my mom. That is a human being. I am Leta. This is Leta's stepdad. If anybody says anything bad about my mother, I will come for your careers and jobs and careers. I don't care if I'm 13. And this is Chubby Jackie Wacky. This is Chubby Jackie Wacky Wacky Wacky. He's so chubby. He's a little bitty. He's so chubby.
So she's obviously got an opinion on mom. Kara, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to talk to you. I am terrible at introducing our guest. I start sounding like a robot or AI. In fact, I have run it through AI software to see how much, and they're like, yes, this is 100% AI. And I'm like, nice, I sound that well. Do you mind introducing yourself to our audience like you're at a coffee shop?
of course, my name is Kara Nash, and I am an adult on the autism spectrum. My official diagnosis is autism level 1 without intellectual delays. We try to stay away from high functioning and low functioning labels in my reality anyway. I am a registered nurse who has worked in mental health for the last 20 years or so. In the last 8 years, I have had a private practice where I work exclusively with people on the spectrum and their parents and their family systems, and sometimes the school systems to try to help to how to bring awareness and acceptance to the idea that autism is a different way of thinking. It doesn't need to be corrected to look like everyone else's version of thinking. It needs to be embraced in a little bit of a different way, but that punitive measures are not necessary, so to speak. And I appreciate you having me on the podcast. Thanks, Amanda and Leta. And I'm looking forward to where the conversation goes today.
We appreciate you being here. Just real quick, because I've had some parents and some educators recently, not hers, because I deal with other kids' IEPs. She's homeschooled because I'm like, I can deal with everyone else's. I can't deal with yours on top of it.
Right, right.
A bunch of them have been asking me how to punish the autism out of kids. And since you brought that up, could you maybe, as a medical professional, mention you can't do that?
Isn't that child abuse?
Yes. When you're having a nervous system response, which is what an autistic meltdown or shutdown is, it's a flooding of cortisol in the system. So the child can't, or adult, can't control their behavior, and they can't really process your correction. So when they're having a behavior, they're communicating, this is not a good environment for me, or I'm communicating, this is not a good environment for me and something needs to change. You yelling at me or trying to correct a behavior in the moment is, it's like trying to argue with someone when they're drunk. Like it's not going to help. So, unless quote unquote a behavior is hurting the child or someone else, I don't think correction is the right way to frame it. I think saving them from the environment is the right way to frame it. And also, so the difference, to differentiate too, meltdowns aren't temper tantrums. Meltdowns come from being sensorily overwhelmed. When I'm in a meltdown, there is nothing you can give me. There is nothing I want. If you're in a Walmart and your kid wants a Pokemon toy and you don't give it to them, and they have a meltdown and they're yelling and screaming on the floor, that's a temper tantrum. You can do some corrective, behavior modification around that. That's appropriate. It's about developmental age. If they're having a meltdown because the lights are too loud, they can hear the refrigerator. She's already been somewhere that day. Their clothes are wet because it's raining outside. You can't punish that. It's a neurological response. It'd be like punishing somebody for throwing up or having a seizure.
Leta, when she was in school, she went to a Montessori preschool, and she would have her preschool teachers were amazing. They understood more than the public school system we were by. And one of the issues she had was she would have meltdowns because she wanted to go out on the playground, but she didn't have the expressive and receptive vocabulary to understand she had to go potty first.
Yeah.
And her poor teacher went to the school system going, I need help. She's having a meltdown over this. I need to figure out how to communicate to her that I'm not keeping her from going out. You may say
They
you're
just brought in an evil therapist. The therapist was evil.
they brought in
Sometimes we have to go through therapists that aren't quite a good fit to find a good one. You're right, Leta.
She turned my hands pinkish red. Just
Really?
because I couldn't reach the paper towels because they were the height of an adult. And
Maybe
we
not
ran out of paper towels.
the school system brought in an old-fashioned ABA therapist.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's definitely a differentiation between those old-fashioned therapists and the newer therapist. And the day she's talking about her preschool teacher met me at the door and went, I may have fired the therapist because it was interfering with her Montessori class because the ABA therapist, she was fresh out of school on top of it. And she's like, this is how we have to do it. We have to turn her neurotypical, and she has to act like she's in a typical class and try taking a traditional public school
None
class.
of us were typical. None of us were typical.
You wouldn't put a kid
Sorry,
in Montessori if they were
Us
typical.
freaking typical. Oh, quite.
That's a
In a good
horrible
way.
experience. I'm sorry.
But yeah, her teacher was like, the ABA therapist wanted my 3-year-old to sit still for 15 minutes straight. We need to punish her. And her teacher is like, this is a Montessori school. We're child led. As long as she's not doing anything bad.
Yeah.
Right.
As a plus, I'm pretty sure she got punched. Because she somehow ended up with a bloody nose after we came back from playing.
I am not sure that was, but they had one little boy in class because you know the difference between girls and boys when we're being diagnosed with everything. One of the little boys, the teacher had problems with and was like, he's aggressive. We need to work on this. His parents were like, he's aggressive. We need to work on this. And the therapist at the school system were like, no, he's just throwing like bricks and hammers at people. That's not aggressive. He's being a boy. And Leta was having meltdowns, so the school system listed her as aggressive because a girl having a meltdown is aggressive.
There are definitely multiple sets of rules, and a lot of the children I work with, particularly, are homeschooled. It's really not reasonable to expect somebody on the spectrum to sit for the majority of 8 hours. It's just not.
No. Her Montessori teacher was like, are you expecting me to sit for the majority of 8 hours?
Yeah, it sounds like she was a very good teacher.
She was, but all she wanted was help because she's like, she can't understand me, and how do I help this? And the jump was, let's discipline her to understand you. And it was the only time I've ever been in an IEP meeting where the teacher is more aggressive about the situation than the parent.
Yeah. Right. Sounds like good advocacy, but in a system that isn't got the resources to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, it was Florida, so we all know how great Florida school systems are.
Yeah.
But that brings me back to some of the things that I'm hearing parents go, well, how do you punish Leta enough that she'll look people in the eye? How do you punish Leta enough that she'll stop stimming? How do you punish Leta enough that she'll stop fixating on one thing?
So it's a really interesting thing that you bring up there, because not looking people in the eye is because our optical nerves, or what people on the spectrum, if you look at functional MRI studies and PET scans, our optical nerves are often wired into the amygdala, which is the fear center of the brain. So it actually creates a fear panic response when we look someone in the eye when we're uncomfortable. So and that's flooding our system with cortisol, which is increasing our blood pressure. So you're actually damaging our bodies by making us do that. You're like advanced hypertension, like early hypertension, is the number one cause of death for people on the spectrum. Like, and some of that is just we live an anxious life, but some of that is being forced to adhere to standards we don't understand and things that are literally wrong for us physically. Um, it's not acceptable. Like, you don't need to look anybody in the eye. That's fine. Pick a place on their forehead. That's a useless goal. What was the second one that you said? I got pretty worked up about the first one.
The stimming is like, and because that annoys me, because we started an entire dance studio for her because even her dance teachers were like, well, she's stimming. How do we stop her from stimming? And I'm like,
Maybe stop talking while I'm trying to do dance and just.
Yeah. So that's stimming creates dopamine in the brain, which is a neurotransmitter that makes you feel calm and good. And if you're worried about a behavior, the last thing in the world you want to do is stop someone from stimming. A question could be, well, how do we stop you from drinking? Like, it does the same thing. Like, you having a drink calms your brain down the same way stimming calms our brain down. And the answer is we wouldn't. You would decide that for yourself. So
I've also kind of said, breathing, because I, am always messing with stuff when I'm doing things. And I'm like, I could try to stop you from breathing. Would you like me to try that?
sure.
Because we've even had a lot of our dancers at the studio. Our teachers are amazing, even though not all of them know the spectrum. They're like, I want to learn. And stimming is one thing. They're like, we will let you stim and then we'll try to bring you back into whatever we're doing. The kids get really excited when they get like a step right. And the next thing you know, they're jumping and shouting because they're excited. And I've had people go, well, how do you get them to not do that? And I'm like, I don't know. Could you tell me how to get the teachers not to be the exact same amount of excited?
Yeah, no, that's a win to me. If you have created an environment where a child feels comfortable expressing their joy, there's nothing like I don't understand the question. You know what I mean?
That's how do you stop them from expressing the joy is pretty much what they're asking. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Why would you ask that as a parent, especially? Like, I don't know
yeah,
any parent who obviously it's a lack of understanding. 'Cause I don't know any parent who doesn't want their child to be joyful and happy.
I think it's what you just said. I think a lot of the parents that have the problem with it are neurotypical parents coming into a world they don't understand. I mean,
Sure.
I was like super excited when she got the autism spectrum diagnosis because I'm like, your dad and I will understand you. Probably not the way most parents are when they get that autism diagnosis.
I mean, I think that's definitely the way that ends up working out more smoothly, though, and where the children tend to feel more accepted. I don't know, Lita. That sounds like your mom and dad try to understand you pretty hard. Is that what you feel like too?
Yes. My father
Yes.
also tries to understand where he went wrong on me being violent.
I think that was just COVID, your entire generation. I cannot wait to see the papers on Gen Alpha.
It's
At least
this.
I know there are people who will be out to me.
I'm glad to know you have good friends. That's important.
Gen Alpha is definitely a different generation with that whole COVID issue. And
It's
we've
true. Their
spent
nervous
so
system's never really wired socially because of the disruption during the
yeah,
developmental stages. It's I think something that we're going to see a lot of programs gauged towards when they're older. Otherwise,
yeah,
I
and
don't
I
see
know
how we can expect them to ever move out or be working. Yeah, no, it's just not reasonable.
it's not. I know I've been talking to friends who own dance studios across the nation, not just on the autism, but they're like, what are we going to do when Gen Alpha gets here? And I'm like, Lita's the oldest Gen Alpha. They're already in your dance studios. That's why you're having problems.
Yeah,
Because I mean, we went into COVID and she could still play on the playgrounds. We came out and she wasn't allowed on playgrounds anymore.
yeah, yeah. It's such a self-directed upbringing that to have adults suddenly telling you what to do now is can be challenging. Not for all kids, but I think for a lot of kids, whether they're autistic or not.
Well, and yeah, definitely, like, the entire group there, and I know with her group, like, she had speech therapy and occupational therapy and physical therapy over Zoom, Physical therapy,
Over
over Zoom
Zoom.
is fun. But she had that for about 6 months because they determined physical therapy was not something they needed to go into the office for in our state.
Okay. That's interesting.
I know. I'm like, how did we get in the Republican state that was like physical therapy is not a necessity in life?
Yeah, I don't understand that. I mean, I do understand that reasoning from we don't want to spend money on this perspective, which is my state standing as well here in North Carolina. But as far as like especially a child, because like you're in a developmental stage where you can actually learn stuff. Lita, your brain's something called neuroplastic. You can learn stuff so much faster than your mom and I can because our brains are old. So we want you to have all of the things like PT and OT so that you can learn and learn and learn.
And then when, yeah,
I think your mic cut.
oh, Jack is sitting weirdly on her gut. He has no
It's
sense of
not
personal
my
space.
gut.
Oh, is it your hip?
Yes.
And it's your bad hip on top of that.
Yes. It's taking into my insides.
It's hard when he's
She-
being so sweet and snuggly to want him to move.
Yeah. She, when she was 11 months old, popped her hip out of joint, and it's never gone in, or
Hey,
didn't
you
go in
let
right.
me watch Phantom of the Opera. Not my fault. You let the stupid 11-month-old baby watch Phantom of the Opera.
Seems reasonable to me.
Well, she was, and I think I mentioned this, she was nonverbal, like expressive, receptive. She did not cry, which I don't think people understand how interesting life is when your baby doesn't cry. Because they're like, oh, that must have been nice. I'm like, well, you try to figure out if she's hungry or
Right.
wet or in pain. The only thing she was reacting to was the 25th anniversary stage production of Phantom of the Opera. She was trying to do the male ballet leads, pirouettes in our kitchen at 11 months old as a wobbly walker on top of everything else. She fell. I called her doctor and went, Conchita, I think I'm meeting you at the ER. And her doctor's like, I hear her in the background. I will be there.
She understood what a big deal it was if she was making noise.
Yeah, and she's like, and we kinda got stopped on the way to the hospital. It was a small town. I knew the officer who stopped me. I'm like, "I'm sorry, I'm going 5 miles over in a residential area," and he heard her crying and was like, "Follow me,"
Oh, that's lovely.
because they all thought she had cracked her head open with the amount of screaming. No, she just popped her hip halfway out of joint, which is still, pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah, still bothering you 13 years later.
Yeah, they decided to try and let it the pediatric, orthopede, I love orthopeds. They're wonderful. Sometimes you just have to wonder what's going through their heads sometimes, though. And they're like, well, she's young enough. Maybe we can just treat it like hip dysplasia and wait for it to put itself back in. It didn't, so it healed halfway out of joint.
And see,
Wait, are you
there's-
saying I could
and
have
that's
had a
tough to
functioning
remember.
hip?
Like,
What'd you say,
that's a
Kara?
really wonderful example of how most physicians don't understand that autistic bodies are different. Most of us have, not most, more than half of us have some sort of atypical muscle elasticity. It manifests in a lot of different ways, but that might have been the answer for a child who was not autistic that had quote unquote average or average capacity for their tendons and their to all go back into place. But that hyperspasticity that often comes makes you probably a really awesome dancer because you can probably do more moves than a lot of people, but it also may have meant that hip didn't heal the way they thought it would.
Because it didn't heal the way it should have, it has kind of kept her from having the amount of movement that she should. Because, this gets into the medical stuff that dance teachers don't want to learn. She's using other muscles to move that hip, and they're like, "Well, her left isn't affected," and I'm like, "But her left hip muscles are actually kind of connected to her right hip," and they're like, "But it shouldn't be connected."
At least I'm not a whiny little baby brat complaining about my back. At least I'm not a little whiny brat.
She
I haven't
has
heard
had
you
a
complain at all.
She's had a lot of teachers because she will limp before she tells you it's hurting now. And the teachers are like, "Oh, just wait till you get old and you have like a real injury."
That's so hopeful. That's sarcasm.
The bad hip makes bad back.
That
At
can
least I'm not a whiny little brat. At least I'm not stopping my life because my back's in pain. What? But when I'm going to bed.
big feelings.
She has feelings, and they're all like, and she's really good at staying quiet right up until she breaks at a dance studio, and the dance teachers think I'm the problem, going, "No, no, you're about to hit her breaking point. You're about to hit her breaking point." And then when she breaks, they're like, "What happened to the sweet, quiet little child?" And I'm like, "She was masking that whole thing."
Yeah, absolutely. We can only match for a finite amount of time, and the person who's gonna know that is Leta and you. I think that's
And
a really important point of like playing through the pain or pushing through the discomfort does not work for a brain type like ours.
It
I don't remember ever breaking.
because you were so young when you broke. It's just been your entire life. And they're like, "Well, just wait till you get old and you have pain." And you're like, I can have it at 6,
Sure.
7, 8, 9, 10.
And
I
that's been like
yeah.
part of my medical journey. If I could share short stories,
Yep.
you know, I have a connective tissue disorder, and at first it was like maybe it's arthritis. In my 20s, they were sending me out for a lot of testing, positive RH factors, positive ANAs, but it wasn't. I don't know, like a whole bunch of like basically confusing doctors. And them being like, there can't be anything wrong, but your lab work's weird. But this isn't. Anyway, they went back and forth about it a lot. But when I first went to see the arthritis doctor, the first thing he said to me was, and I'm 27, arthritis isn't a normal part of aging. Who are you talking to? I'm 27 years old. Like, I it's so confusing to me, that disconnect. Like, I have yet to find anybody who can treat a connective tissue disorder. They just throw muscle relaxers at it, which I'm not going to take because they make me feel tired and sluggish and dumb. And you have to take them 3 times
And
a day. So it's like, I'll just be uncomfortable. But I would bet maybe dance helps with that as far as stretching out. I'd love to
it
hear you speak to
does to
that.
it does to a point, but then there's times like she's got an amazing hip hop teacher who will sit there and go, "You're done with hip hop," because she'll notice when she's limping too much. And then she gets all angry and going, "No, I can do it." And her hip hop teacher's like, "We'd rather you have the ability to perform than kill yourself now." A lot of dance teachers, on the other hand, are like, "Oh, no. I mean, I know she's not able to put weight on her leg after class, but that's okay. That's just building up those muscles."
It sounds like it makes it more complicated.
It does. I feel bad for dance teachers because they think they're educators, but they have not had a college degree. So you come up with against someone like me with a PhD, and I'm sitting there going, "You do realize I think people with doctorates are not nearly as educated as I am."
Do they not realize why I went to PT? Because if they think it's how the bone works, then no. Stupid, don't go back to freaking kindergarten. Wait a minute, no, don't go back to freaking kindergarten because freaking 4-year-olds are smarter than you.
She gets a little annoyed.
I would too.
Um, but that's another thing people have asked is how do you discipline, not the annoyance level, but her being a little bit less able to use that hip. And I'm like, you can't discipline a physical disability.
Yeah, amen.
Um, the other thing I
Are you
got,
sure
a
these
lot-
people aren't abusing their children?
Not on
I
purpose,
think
but a little bit.
they're not doing that on purpose. They're doing their best, and
No
they'll
one does
get.
it on purpose. None.
I think what they're going to get is a lot of my age group who was diagnosed in the 80s and 90s. Our parents are like, "Well, we did the best we could. We didn't know what we didn't know." And it's like, common
And
sense,
do
people.
those children still talk to their parents?
Woo! Lita for the win. Got some mad insights over there, girl.
necessarily, but
Well, are we gonna say that they're trying their best while their children are actively not speaking to them? Because if your children are actively not speaking to you, I think that says volume on your parenting.
I
And where
agree.
you did nothing really good except keeping them alive. But
I think
now
that's
I'm
a whole
questioning
other
whether if you kept
podcast.
them alive or if they kept themselves alive.
I am really interested to see the papers on Gen Alpha.
I'm interested to see the ones that are actually written by Gen Alphas.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting because they just do not know when they're supposed to stay quiet. And that's not a bad thing.
No. We're leaving y'all a political environment where y'all need to be loud to be heard. And I'm sorry for that.
We live in a democratic state that has a thing called TABOR, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, and the teachers got everyone to agree to a pay increase last year. Congratulations, teachers. But they didn't increase the taxes. So they've got to cut stuff, and they're cutting special ed in order to.
I thought they just cut the children. I mean, the teachers obviously don't care about the children. Obviously, in the teachers' eyes, the children are just little toys. So why don't they just cut the children? It would make everyone's lives easier, especially my generations. Because, hello, I don't want to interact with Gen Z. I don't. There are nice Gen Zers. They are few and far and thinly between.
I think that's a very interesting point. As far as yeah, your generation is definitely much more aware of how they feel and how to express it, and you take no business from anybody else.
I kind of feel bad for Gen Z, but after all the garbage they gave millennials and Gen Xers, I'm like, y'all have fun with Gen Alpha. It's going to be fun for you.
So I'm moving
Yeah,
in a direction. Lita, can I ask a question for
Yeah.
you? What do you love most about when you're dancing?
I can't ignore stupid people.
Okay, so it's like you're able to just be in your own little place in your head and you don't notice other people?
And I get to run them over if they keep being stupid. Because I don't know how they got in front of me. I don't know how they got run over, and then I don't know how that brake's halfway broken.
Gen Alpha is Gen Alpha. And we really don't have anything to compare their generation to, like, unless you go back to Newton being alive in that 3-year pandemic.
I hadn't thought about that, but that's it's an interesting correlation. I think that technology being what it is makes it a little bit different, but yeah, I can see where you're at with that.
But they came out of things with that pandemic with, like, the theory of gravity, the theory of motion. The book of Dracula was written during all that.
It's called You Leave the Introverted People Alone for a Good Chunk of Time. And they actually get to do what they wanted to do because you want the world to be freaking stupid to the introverted people and make the introverted people be more focused on your stupidity.
There's some wisdom in that, Lita. I agree. Like, I got a lot done during the pandemic, as did a lot of other people I know who are very creative.
I did want to ask, because another thing that I've been asked about punishing, changing is autistic people, Lita included, me included, tend to have, train. The joke is we all have our own trains, right? The thing that we hyper focus on.
Sure.
And I've talked to dance teachers, I've talked to parents who are like, because Lita hyper focuses on tap and hip hop. Those are the two forms of dance she likes. She'll do jazz. She hates ballet. Do not ask her to learn ballet. And people are like, but she needs to because I think she'd be a beautiful ballet dancer.
So I don't care if they think this river ballerina body is being wasted. Now only if I had gloss Or if I was a werewolf, then I could get away with murdering them.
But I am not a medical professional. My PhD is over in physics and in theoretical and quantum on top of that. So I deal in like fairy tale. As a medical professional, eh, can you kind of explain that to people? Because I've tried to explain she hates ballet. You cannot teach her ballet.
Sure. So, one of the things about the autistic brain is it's, and this is a theory. This is kind of new in that it was formed around the early 2000s. But it's awesome because it's one of the first theories that actually had people with autism involved in creating this paper. It's a theory of monotropism, the idea that the autistic brain likes to hyper focus on things it enjoys, which means we become really, really good at the things we enjoy. And also the things we don't enjoy, we really don't care about. So it would be like trying to get somebody who has a very sensitive stomach and a very sensitive palate to enjoy ghost peppers. Like, why would you even try that? It's just painful. And I can understand the desire and like you think you're making a good choice for someone else, but you can't. You're the mom. You can in the you like family can have input on choices for a child. Unless you're raising somebody every day or involved in their day to day, you don't get to pick as to whether or not this is something she needs to power through because life's hard. There's enough things that are going to be hard. Why make anything hard that Lita, if you don't like ballet, girl, don't do ballet. I don't care what everybody else says. It's fine. Like it's just there's no point in it.
I mean, I don't.
She doesn't. That was one of the things with starting our own studio is I made it very clear to our dance teachers, we're going to have kids who hate tap. We're going to have kids who hate ballet. And currently in the dance world, you can't hate ballet. And I get that in their brains, well, but this is where we're going to get all the tech and the foundation. And it's like, then figure out how to bring that foundation into the class in the way that they can get it in tap, jazz, or whatever. And our teachers have been amazing about that. And they're like, okay, well, I guess I won't suggest if that kid is not hyper fixated. We've got a 5-year-old that I am pretty sure is going to New York, and everyone, the neurotypical teachers are like, how can you tell? And I'm like, she is 5 and she is hyper fixated on ballet.
For sure. Yeah.
Like, and the way she's hyper fixated was that one at 5 or at 6 with tap dancing. And I'm like, and she was discovered at 8. We're going to be keeping this 5-year-old back off point because I won't until she's physically ready body wise.
Except she tried. Twice.
We're keeping her off.
Yeah. Don't think the 5-year-old's happy about that.
Yeah,
She
but
does.
that's
She
one
wants
of
to
those
go.
examples where sometimes the medical, in the same way that her physical body isn't ready for point yet, if someone's mental, if their brain doesn't have any interest in ballet, it's the same thing. Your body isn't ready, whether it's not physically ready or it's not mentally ready. You, from my perspective as a healthcare provider, is potentially opening your child up to mental illness to force them to do things that feel unhealthy to them. It teaches them that they can't trust their own body's signals.
She's showing off the pity snoring. That's what she's doing right now.
It's kind of a really good sound.
Oh, I know. Until it's like midnight and he's doing that in my ear. And I'm like, could you maybe not right in my ear? He was because I couldn't handle him snoring in my ear the night before.
What? No, it was because I literally went into Velda's kennel before we all went to bed.
Is that why? I wasn't involved in the decision. But yeah, what you were saying, because I've had Leta, ballet literally gives her mental health issues. Like she will come out crying, she will come out stressed, she will come out. It physically gives her issues, and I cannot get dance teachers to understand that. They're like, how is this giving her any issues?
They also plus that this helpless 9-year-old me having an eating disorder.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, that's one of the reasons why there are those sorts of challenges in the dance community. And I'm not saying this globally, obviously, I don't know. That's your arena, both of you, but I have definitely worked with quite a few dancers who have body dysmorphia, we'll say that.
Yeah, blame that on ballet. Because you have to be skinny.
And you don't. You need to be muscled. But the dance world, they like to think. I don't know where they're getting their papers from. Google, and
Yeah.
they're not. I am the mean parent going, "Can you show me the paper?" And they're like, "Well, it's not in the newspaper." And I'm like, "Oh, I forgot. You don't know what papers are, do you?"
The
Yeah.
fact that you
Of
just
course I
used the
know.
word newspaper is telling me your references are not on par with the situation.
There's a big dance magazine that 2 years ago did a big April deal about how inclusive the dance world was. And they were talking to an unnamed autistic dancer who was like, "Yeah, I went into class, and in order for me to learn as a kid, I wanted to ask all these questions about
Yeah.
exactly how this step was done. And I learned that I can't do that." And that was what dance helped me with, was learning not to tell people what I need.
That's not very helpful. Sounds like a setup for sexual abuse.
And that was their big look at how inclusive dance has become, is we've trained kids to, and I'm like, "So you're excited that you're training them to mask."
Yeah.
Right.
Of
So how
course
do you
I
do
know.
that? Sorry, Lita. I want to know how
Oh,
you and your mom
yeah.
do that differently at your dance studio.
So how do we do it differently? If a kid needs us to sit and explain um, the step, what are we going to do?
We're gonna explain the step. But we're gonna talk and do the step. I don't understand why we're doing that, but okay. That's so plus. I know a lot of neurotypical women are gonna agree with me, but I kind of feel bad for guys in ballet because, yeah, the women get over sexualized in ballet a lot, but the guys get even more over sexualized. Also, plus their leotards and tights even have more high cuts, and the guys just get a lot of crap. Also, plus they get a lot of guy stereotypes from their teachers who are female.
Hmm.
So ignoring that part, because we also our boys are dancing in sweats because they do not need to be in tights where you can see every little wrinkle.
And we're not telling them to be like the guy stereotypes of you shouldn't feel pain because you're a guy.
Good.
Some of the ballet costumes for guys, I mean, it's just as bad for guys. It will just cover the sections you need to cover in order to not get yourself in trouble for child stuff. And it's like, that's not appropriate with any child.
Yeah.
And the puppy just tooted on her. That's what's going on over there.
Glad the microphone wasn't near that.
Why does your tooth like pick up the tail? Pick up the tail.
There is nothing like bully breeds in the back end of bully breeds.
Yes, they do have something going on in their stomach that is unlike anything going on in any other breed of stomach that I've ever been around dog wise.
Do you need to stand up for 2 seconds and walk away? She's like having but we are, for our dancers, we are sitting there. If they need it broken down, if they need to understand the why behind the steps, the teachers are still doing the step while they're explaining the why. And I think that's just hardwired into the teacher's brain to do it while they're explaining. We've got, it sounds like stuff you really should do in studios. Not only are we doing that, if you have a sensory issue, we have a uniform, and I'm putting that in quotations for a reason.
Okay.
If Lita hates leotards, I am not putting the child in leotards. She hates
Amen.
tights. I am not putting the child in tights. I would be a little hypocritical if I asked the other parents to put their kids in tights and leotards if their kids hated them.
Sure.
Um, Even shoes, Lita does, because of all the issues with ballet, she does not like ballet shoes.
Right.
Because that creates, yes.
Okay, in my defense, they hold the soles of my feet. And then my feet are in very much pain. And then I can't walk on my feet for a good chunk of hours. Especially when I wake up. Especially when I wake up. I fall a lot afterwards.
That's
So,
your reason not to want to do something.
yeah. So if you do not like the ballet shoes, you are not forced to wear the ballet shoes. She helps out in all the little kid ballet classes and the combo classes.
That's
They
Um,
are adorable.
Yeah.
Especially the one that's very much hyper focusing 24/7 on ballet. I'm pretty sure she's living in those ballet clothes. I am like darn well sure she is living in those ballet clothes. She is now coming into the studio with those ballet clothes under her normal clothes. And the shoes. Almost underneath her normal shoes. She tried. She failed.
she is absolutely hyper fixated. The 5-year-old she's talking about, she will stop her parents in the middle of the store and tell them it's time to do ballet.
Nice.
Wait, she will? She will?
Yeah.
What?
And she
Oh,
will.
that's like me at 6 when I was told to practice shuffles and flaps wherever I go, and you were like, Lita, don't practice wear the glasses.
Autistic kids tend to take things literally, and she had a tap teacher that told her you need to be practicing shuffles everywhere. And we're on the glass aisles at Michael's, and my not very coordinated 6-year-old is like, but my teacher told me to practice. And I'm like, you need to clarify in class for my 6-year-old. No, she would be smart enough to know not to do that.
I feel like literalists, if we could teach parents, teachers, healthcare providers literalism, we would see far fewer meltdowns and far fewer like sensory overwhelm shutdowns because neurotypical people be confusing, yo.
I had an email this morning where I thought been very clear last night when I called someone a stupid idiot, and they're like, "What are you insinuating?" And I'm like,
Okay,
"Would
if
you like
you're
me bold that for you?"
okay, if you're saying what are you insinuating by calling me stupid, are you insinuating that I am stupid? Then you are literally saying that you are stupid. You are literally stupid
Right.
because insinuating means you're not flat out saying it, but somebody just flat out saying it. So if they're insinuating, and why did I go to forget speech therapy and nobody can use English right? Hey, people are use speech therapy if nobody's using fucking English right.
Heard. and very much supports my my idea.
She had a speech therapist that also was like, "Are you insinuating something?" And I'm like, "No, I actually said what I meant." And she's like, "Well, you said I was stupid." And I'm like, "And
Right.
Yes, I told her a lot of things about what I thought about her too, and she was also thinking I insinuated. When I was telling her she was not using English right, she said, "Are you insinuating that I am not doing my job?" And I was like, "No, I am flat out telling you that you are not doing your job."
the speech therapist, bless her heart, was under the impression that there were more important things than working on Lita's enunciation. And she
Okay.
was working on Lita's sensory issue to junk food. And I'm like, I don't know if you understood this, but we can't seem to understand the child. She's finally at least trying to start speaking. But the enunciation would help us all a lot. It would also help with the meltdowns if we could understand the child.
I was 7.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like that's a high priority. Being heard and being seen and being connected. That's the stuff that makes you feel like part of a community.
She felt making Lita eat pizza because pizza made Lita throw up was a higher priority than the enunciation and being understood.
I was not being cast out by my peers. My peers were saying, "How come we keep eating junk food and you can eat freaking healthy food and we don't eat freaking healthy food? And how come you can do it and how come we can't do it?" And I got praise.
Yeah.
I got praised by preteens.
Sometimes it just some people aren't for us. Like, you don't have to like everybody, and everybody's not a good fit, and that's okay. And I'm glad that you were able to communicate, and your mom was able to say, let's go with something different." Because a lot of parents don't have the energy, or they don't believe their kids, and they won't change providers.
My only issue was she was in charge of the clinical hours for the new SLPs out of one of our universities.
Yeah, somebody's career got burned to sick.
She was informing all the parents that if your child doesn't eat junk food, this is the more important thing. And I'm like, there are some, let's, and so I may have gone to the dean of her department and went, "Hi, what you doing, buddy? Let's talk."
There must be something in her past that makes that an issue for her. She was just kind of bringing it with her to work.
She was trained in the 70s.
Hmm. Yeah. Is it? I don't know. Like, if that training counts. If you did,
Wait, she was
I feel like
trained
it
in
was
this.
training and discipline, but that's not necessarily the effective strategy of coping with someone on the spectrum.
Yeah, no, she got her full master's in speech in the 70s, and it was a different
Wait, if she was
time.
trained in the 70s, wouldn't she be trained to make for children to get over their texture issues with vegetables and healthy stuff? And in the 70s, then they just hate kids eating junk food. Like, seriously, in the 70s, weren't they telling therapists to force kids to eat healthy foods? I don't think the junk food forcing part was anywhere in the 70s. Anywhere. It was the 70s. They were fuzzy big eaters. Well, picky in the sense of they are liars, pants on fire. They're just jackasses in the 70s. What was just fuzzy kids to eat? Healthy? It was the 70s. You were supposed to be a beautiful, gorgeous, skinny woman and a handsome, masculine man with muscles. Like that. What the devil gets doing healthy? I don't see where the junk food part came in there. I look at the junk food now, like what when it come in there, she ain't very unhealthy as a child in the 70s.
It's confusing.
But they also thought TV dinners were healthy in the 70s. So but no, it was, and that's one that I was like, whatever. Because she's had lots of great therapists. But there are
Good.
some of the ones that were trained on older therapies. And I think those of us who went through the older therapies also know
There's
I'm
long-term
not really.
repercussions that aren't necessarily helpful with those older therapies.
Yeah, and I kind of want to go, where did you guys get your papers in the 70s and 80s?
Yeah, I think we talked about this briefly. You like maybe the three of us. How the person who created ABA took children out of institutions and brought them into his home and did ABA with them for like 40 to 60 hours a week for a few years. He used cattle prods when they did something he didn't want them to do. So he literally tortured them into behaving the way he wanted them to behave. He classically conditioned them the way you would teach a dog to like fetch. And then when he was done with writing his papers and doing his research, he took those children back. They've been living with him and his wife and like in a home environment. He dropped them back off at the institution.
Yep.
I
Is
don't
it
see how
really?
that's the person I want making choices for myself or my loved ones.
Yeah.
Call me
Is,
crazy.
does it sound like the way they used to treat zoo animals in the zoo?
Exactly.
What? American totally treated autistic children in that decade the same way we treated zoo animals, but nowadays we treat zoo animals with actual respect, and we grew on the science of zoo animals and how to actually respect them and how to not actually torture them and about their actual environment and their actual mental state and their actual environments also affecting the captured ones too, and yet we did not seem to expand on the help mindfulness of autistic children and helping autistic children in their environments. And yeah, we care more about the zoo animals that we treated poorly as hell when we first made zoos, and we treated them just like we treated the autistic children, and we treated the autistic children just as we treated the zoo animals, and we put zoo animals in cages in that decades, and we put autistic children in mental cages, except we stopped using cages on zoo animals, but yeah, we keep putting autistic children in mental cages.
That's a lot of reality you just broke down there, Lita. You think that my hope is that, the thing I want to do in my work is build a better understanding of autistic lives so that people will stop doing the things the same way they stopped doing it to the zoo animals. Because you're right. There's a lot of, I hadn't thought about that, but there are a lot of parallels there. And also, I think it's interesting. So many of us on the spectrum have a special place in our hearts for animals and are driven by a compassion for animals. And I hadn't thought about maybe it's that we're seeing ourselves in them. That's a good insight, kiddo.
She's really good at having the good insights. It's just, especially in the neurotypical community, they're like, no, you need to wait your turn to have these insights, which I think all of us older people on the spectrum have heard that for a few decades now. And I'm like, I don't think you understand. I'm not letting her wait her turn. Her turn is now.
Yes. Yes. Especially like you want her to, it's your opportunity, Lita, to practice developing your speech, right? So like you're doing what they keep asking you to do, and then they tell you it's wrong. Those people are confusing.
She's
But
had
I'm
some
really glad
people.
that what you're doing here with this podcast is like blending family and creativity and neurodiversity all in one place. And I think that that's a lovely thing to offer to the community because creativity is such a meditative and peaceful place to be. Um, and we're losing it in the school systems. We're losing it in kids interacting with each other, even as like video games become more dominant. So I love that that's something you're providing.
And on top of it, getting the awareness out. And I know we're filming this in April. It's not coming out till May, but it's depending on which side of a divide you're on, it's either autism awareness or autism acceptance month.
Yeah.
But even for the acceptance guys, we kind of got to get a little bit of awareness out there still, boys and girls.
Sure. If you accept a false idea of what you think something is, it's not really helping us. So like the awareness of like what the diagnosis means, and then let them accept it. But yeah, I actually got into a conversation about that with another podcaster I was on with, where he corrected me because I was calling it awareness, and was like, yeah, I've been in the community for so long. It used to be awareness. Obviously, I want acceptance. It's very different. They're very, very different things.
I think there's also
neither of these months should exist. I'm not saying there shouldn't be awareness and acceptance. I'm just saying they should have came fucking sooner. They shouldn't still be a thing. And the ones that should go fucking sooner. They must be a thing.
It's
well,
shifting,
and I know she's been complaining to some of our sponsors who are like, oh, we're going to do stuff for you for autism acceptance, autism awareness month. And she's like, it's something I'm due 12 months out of the year, right? Not just April.
Yeah. And that's the part of like making the neurotypical community feel connected to us, though. If we give them a month, yeah, maybe in 100 years we won't need to have a month. That's my hope.
But yeah. Did you want to say something real quick?
It's confusing military kid months. It's also on the same day. But at least how does that one? I get free stuff. I get candy. I get free stuff. I don't really get anyone saying, oh, hey, it's cool that you're part of the military and just get more stuff about. The military is about that. And I mean, I love my father, but it's military kid months, not parents months. Parents months is way before the month of the kids. Like, can we give a damn about the kids on the kids month? Can we give a damn about the kids and not give a damn about the parents?
There is a reason that April is Military Kids Month. And I don't think we made it clear enough because we were kind of trying to do it on the down low when we did it.
Mhm.
3 out of 5 TRICARE
Is it because we're
prime
all
dependents.
autistic?
Well, no, only 3 out of 5 of the dependents are autistic.
Yeah, the 3 out of the 5 are just weird.
I mean, it does mean that, April's a perfect month for 3 out of the 5 of ya.
I get free candy.
Nothing wrong with that.
But it is extremely diagnosed in the military community because TRICARE will not open the coffers until you get that actual diagnosis.
Yeah. Yeah, and that it's unfortunate in so many reasons. We don't have the resources. You know, just the general training, like in medical school, like, or even for therapists. Like, it's amazing how many therapists will say they understand autism, but they've never had an autistic client. It's like, so will you understand the, 3 pages you read on it in your master's program, and you think that that qualifies you to work with this? That's my little soapbox right there. Like,
It's about 3 pages in some of these programs. I know for special ed in the public school system in most states, you don't even have to have a full semester course on special education before you can be a special ed teacher. And I don't think enough people realize that needs to change too.
yeah, agreed. Very much so. It's
Um,
hard to say anything about what's such uncertain times for the school system. I'm glad that since you're homeschooling, you'll be able to keep it consistent, and ideally won't be a whole lot of transitions.
yeah, I don't think there will be much transition for her, though our state is they're trying to do away with homeschooling, but then on the other hand, they're trying to do away with the special ed stuff. And it's like,
Right.
you can do one or the other. You cannot do both.
Yeah, I'm just hoping
That's
they're
very
not
true.
gonna become smart enough to figure out how to get rid of mine.
Well, I have told a few of the state legislatures or legislators that you will be living with them during the school year if they get rid of homeschooling.
What have you opened to new experiences, Lita? Amanda, was there any other
Oh,
questions you had from like
I
folks that sent them to you, or things that you wanted to bring up in this conversation that you think might be helpful from a medical perspective?
Yeah. I was wondering because I know we're at the end of our hour and my ADHD kind of led us down a few bunny trails. I do apologize about that.
Happened.
Is there any way we could get you to come on the program again later and talk about stuff?
Sure. If people want to send you some questions, if they have any medical questions, like, and then maybe you could send it to me ahead of time, and we could talk about it.
That's what I was gonna ask is if
Yeah,
that would work for you, because 'cause we're starting to do that over on our Facebook where we bring in a guest a second or third time, we ask, "Hey, what questions might you have for the guest?"
sure, absolutely. And there'll be things I don't know. And also there'll be things that I've probably dealt with quite a bit. So anything that normalizes the fact that our neurotype is just as valid as any other neurotype, I'm on board for.
Yeah, because I know I wanted to talk to you a bit about, next time, if you're okay with it, we've had some problems explaining why she can't do pirouettes the normal way. And I think part of it's her neurodivergency, part of it's her dyslexia, part of it's her lazy eye, but the idea that you need to look at a spot in the mirror.
Sure. Yeah, that definitely sounds like it has quite a few physiological components. That's kind of like asking somebody who can't read without glasses to read a book without their glasses.
Yeah, but yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Sorry we got off on bunny trails.
That's all right. It was a pleasure to spend some time with both of you, and I appreciate you sharing your passion for what you're doing.
Yeah. Where can people find you on the internet?
Thank you for asking. My website is the Autistic Autism Consult, and you'll find some pretty good blogs on there about things like supplements and meltdowns. And I just did one yesterday on using AI to make up for executive functioning deficits, which is pretty cool. On YouTube, I'm same thing. Your the autistic autism consultant, and got about maybe over 100 videos up, about 7,000 followers. So like, come join the community. I always love it when people challenge me or ask me questions, or are really nice when people say mean things. That's also really supportive. But yeah, I appreciate you asking, and I just like as much conversation as we can have, and as much as we can bring these things that in the past, like you and I, our generation has been shamed for. As much as we can bring those up and put them in the light and say there's no reason to be ashamed for this. I think that, the second leading cause of death for people on the spectrum is suicide. We can bring that number down. We can. We just need to stop telling people people need to stop telling us our way is wrong.
And we might be able to bring that hypertension down too if everyone's not telling us how to act.
Yeah, the hypervigilance and the masking does not help with the hypertension.
No. I will make sure we get those links from you. We'll put them
Sounds
in the
good.
description. We also keep a running list of all of our guests on our website, and we'll make sure that all that's on the website as well.
Thank you both. And it's been lovely, Leta. Thank you for sharing your insights and your awful, awful cute little puppy.
He's adorable.
Indeed. I agree completely.
I feel for you, the political people trying to get rid of homeschool. Remember, you might have me in one of those schools if you tried to come from mine. So I will probably make all your teachers be fired and make all your teachers realize that they are stupid and that they have no brains. I will probably ruin all your teachers. I will probably make them realize they do not deserve their jobs.
She probably should not be in public school.
No, no.
Uh,
Still not gonna be
Leta,
crushed.
You would keep it interesting, though, kiddo. You would keep it very, very interesting.
Well, thank you for coming on the podcast, and we'll talk to you later.
Talk to you soon. Have a great day.
You too.
Hello, thank you for watching the podcast. Please subscribe and also look at the adorable paper. Just to also subscribe for it and also please comment. And don't forget if you subscribe to us, if you want this instant of our new podcast, and also please the adorable paper. Don't you like it?